Love them or hate them, the extraction shooter market just keeps heating up, and what felt dormant for so long just had a crazy few weeks in April where the genre was up, then down, then up again, and that wasn't even tariff related. All this started back in early April when Bungie finally released their marathon gameplay reveal trailer showcasing the art style and gunplay for their upcoming extraction shooter. And the reaction was mixed, to put it lightly. That reveal trailer has a mostly negative like-dislike ratio, around 60% dislikes, and that is almost certainly not what Bungie wanted. Players were quick to criticize that the art style made the environment seem flat, while the colors were just garish in contrast to the oddly matte textures throughout the map, on the characters, and on the weapons. Simply put, the style was pretty divisive, but it's Bungie. So the level-headed said the gunplay looks interesting, maybe we should wait for the closed alpha on the 23rd of April and the discourse progressed from there. I mean, it was mostly doom and gloom, I'd say, but there was some hope that the gameplay could save it. Then, Battlestate Games, the makers of Escape from Tarkov, revealed that Tarkov will have a 1.0 release this year, and even bigger news to me, Tarkov will be coming to Steam shortly after that 1.0 release, which I think will expand it to a new audience not willing to download their launcher. I feel that too, aside from my other many displeasures with Tarkov. Of course, knowing them, they'll probably just have Steam open their launcher, which would kind of defeat the point, but that's okay for some people. It's a big deal since several Tarkov-like experiences have tried to break in over here on Steam, like the as-of-yet released Arena Breakout Infinite, Incursion, Red River, Gray Zone Warfare, Delta Forces Extraction Mode. It's difficult to say if any of those have been a runaway success, but I would say no? I don't have any friends that seem to be playing any of those titles or talking about them, but I also don't have a lot of friends playing Tarkov at the moment. So, what happens to those titles when Tarkov lands on Steam remains to be seen, but I imagine the competition for players will be even more fierce in an already niche market. Okay, so Tarkov says, "What's up, Steam?" And then the Marathon closed alpha kicks off on April 23rd, and players are allowed to stream and share their experiences, and the results were in. Yeah, people still weren't feeling it. The most common criticism I saw was that the game had no real hook to it, and there were little reasons for players to engage with each other or fight AI without a need for specific rewards. And the AI specifically felt a little dumb and one-dimensional to fight. And while the gunplay may feel tight and clean, the general consensus is that Marathon just isn't ready and needs more time in the oven. But again, people came to Marathon's defense explaining this is just an alpha build, so relax, Bungie can fix this stuff, and I totally understand that sentiment. They made Halo, don't you know, and Destiny, if you played those. But then, to make matters worse for Marathon, another title did a playtest, Embark's Arc Raiders, which we'll get to in a second. Because while Marathon is getting all this attention, Good Fun Corporation throws down the gauntlet, releasing their gameplay trailer on April 25th, showcasing their upcoming extraction game called Hunger. Described as a PvPvE extraction RPG that blends brutal melee and range combat with deep, long-term character progression, questing, and crafting. Scavenge for resources, battle unspeakable horrors, and outlast rival living. I'm not the first person to say this looks a bit like Hunt Showdown, but it does sound like they're going their own way with the RPG elements, and the people that made this also made Hell Let Loose before Team 17 took it over, and that is probably my second most played game on Steam, so I'm curious to see how Hunger lands. It's been interesting to watch the Hunt community's reaction to it, so we'll just keep some tabs on it. But anyway, this is about this very crazy month. So back to the playtest mode. Embark Studios has their second technical test, I think they're calling it, for Arc Raiders, and just to give you the details, it's described as an upcoming multiplayer extraction adventure set in a lethal future Earth ravaged by a mysterious mechanized threat known as Arc. And the interesting thing about this title is it started life as a PvE only game and shifted to the usual PvPvE format of the genre sometime last year or the year before, upsetting a lot of fans but exciting new ones. I've actually put a few hours into this technical test, And it is pretty, and I might do an in-depth video into it, but it has definitely set itself in contrast to Marathon and its reception, because Arc Raiders looks great, it runs pretty well, and overall I'd say it's fun if you can get over the third-person camera. One caveat though that I would mention about Arc Raiders is that Embark's other game, The Finals, also got similar critical reception for its gunplay and destruction, and despite the positivity around that game from the press and streamers, I wouldn't say The Finals is dominating the market. It has an audience, and a healthy one in fact, just not a huge one for an arena shooter. But with Arc Raiders, it doesn't feel like anyone is having to say like, hey guys, this is an early build, we can't judge it yet, because there's already a pretty viable product here, further deepening the hole that it feels Marathon has found itself in. And if that was the end, even that would feel like the end of a saga, but no. One of the most anticipated titles in the shooter market, Titanfall 3, also got some news this week when Jason Schreier shared on Bloomberg that Titanfall 3 is an extraction shooter.
Oh snap.
And has subsequently been canceled following around 300 to 400 people being laid off by EA. Schreier wrote, the canceled project, codenamed R7, was an extraction shooter set in the Titanfall universe according to people familiar with its development, and that it was not close to release. Okay, I can't not do this. If you've been around for a while, you might remember a little video I made in 2023 saying that Titanfall had all the ingredients of an extraction shooter, and the next Titanfall might be just that. And the fidelity of this experience has convinced me of one thing: Titanfall would make for an excellent extraction shooter.
Pilot, get to the evac ship.
And now here we are almost 2 years later for a terrible I told you so, and a reminder that EA can't just let us have nice things. It does feel like the cancellation of this title could be tied to the reception of Marathon, but an unannounced Star Wars project also got canceled, so maybe not, could just be a coincidence. It does make me wonder if the positivity around Arc Raiders just a week later would have been enough to justify the continued development, but I doubt it. So that was the wild ride in April, and it raises important questions about the extraction shooter market. Is Marathon the nail in the coffin for a AAA presence in the extraction market? Are we so back with a positive reception to Hunger's aesthetic and Arc Raiders gameplay? Are the people that are entirely dismissive of extraction shooters reflective of a wider trend? We have seen so many games try and fail in this space, like the Cycle Frontier, Marauders, Hawked, Hyenas. I didn't even talk about the Exoborn playtest, which is its own can of worms, but that was also this year. If you haven't heard of any of those, that kind of proves my point. This type of game needs compelling gunplay and smart or interesting AI and cool looking maps and incentives for players to interact. It's a difficult mix that blends more systems than your typical multiplayer shooter game, and I totally get why other titles can't seem to find the right formula. I'm not sure what the future holds for the extraction shooter market, but I would love to hear your thoughts if you've made it this far. Maybe subscribe if you're new for any other wild months that could be coming up, and let me know if any of these titles have piqued your interest, because I'm curious how this mostly hunt audience is feeling. I think I have a pretty good idea which one has you most interested. Also, one last question: what's up with everyone making terrible hunger puns in the comments of that video? All I'm saying, it was truly upsetting. Okay, until the next video, goodbye.